Garret. How's it going?
Good, Joel. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Awesome. All right. Well, just to get into it, Umphrey's is, I guess, in 2020, approaching 23 years together. What do you think about that when you look at that number, and as the band is in the next 2 years going to be hitting 25 years?
You know, it's interesting because there's definitely the feeling that, like, wow, we've been doing this for a long time. But at the same time, when we get out on the road and, you know, get up on stage and are playing together, in a lot of ways it still feels very youthful and invigorated. And, you know, I'm sure part of it is that I get to make music with 5 of my best friends. And in addition to, you know, us staying close with each other on and off the road, we've just kind of kept trying to push things musically and not be ever satisfied with where things are. Always, you know, continuing to work on new music and to push forward. So I think that's really like kind of our lifeblood there, is that desire to keep trying new things.
Was that the intent coming out of the gate, or was that how the band evolved into that?
You know, honestly, when we started, we were just trying to postpone the inevitable of what we thought was like, all right, eventually we're going to have to quit screwing around playing music and get some other jobs that will have us sitting behind a desk. So we were really just trying to make that happen and see if anybody cared. And yeah, unfortunately, we're still doing that. You know, 22 years in now.
Well, when you guys started at Notre Dame in South Bend, what was that scene like? I mean, was it a scene that you could flourish in, or was it that you guys were just there and you pushed out from that point?
Yeah, honestly, there wasn't really a scene. Ali Baba's Tahini, who was Jake's original band, were kind of coming up around the same time, and they were more of a South Bend band, and we were more of a Notre Dame band. But we had kind of similar styles, and I think, you know, as things went, probably shared quite a few fans too. But yeah, I think that really took a lot of the pressure off, that we were somewhere where nobody was really caring what we were doing, and it didn't really matter. And it gave us a couple of years to work on the sound and work on improving as a band without being too highly scrutinized. So I think we kind of got lucky in that sense. You know, we moved to Chicago in 2000 and kind of began our touring career in earnest shortly after that move. But yeah, being able to be in a small town where you could really try anything, and you know, for the most part, it was our friends coming to shows for the first, you know, year or two. And I mean, I'll never forget. We have a guy who still comes to shows now, who, you know, we spotted in the audience, and after the show walked up and talked to him, and we were like, hey man, so who do you know, or who's your friends here? And he's like, oh, I don't really know anybody, I just like the music. We're like, oh my God, we have a fan. We have one fan. And you know, of course, 2 years later, we played this place, the Madison Oyster Bar, and there was an electrical fire with one of the transformers outside the venue, and it started a fire in a tree and caught part of the venue on fire, and unfortunately blew up our first fan's car. So, you know, probably should have taken a hint at that point, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, obviously, with the success the band's had, hindsight's 2020. But when you look at those early years, what was it that really kept the band going? Like, I mean, it's you know, when you think about starting any kind of artistic endeavor, about the sacrifice and time involved just to get it off the ground.
Yeah, I think that, you know, it was really we kind of took a cue from, you know, some of the other bands in the more jam-oriented scene of trying to write as much as we could and play as much variety with our set lists as possible. And I think that was originally probably what had people coming back to see us again.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the most challenging things to try to do as a live musician, is not only get somebody to come out for the first time, but then to try to get them to stay interested and want to come out and see the band again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I think that variety, I think that, especially once Jake and Chris were in the band, we've had the same lineup now since about the end of 2002. We really had a more solid focus on the kind of direction we wanted to go, and that was to be one of the more sort of progressive bands on the scene. And not to say that really limited us stylistically at all, because we still, embraced tons of different styles of music, and I think that variety, we just kind of came along at the right time, where we're in a super ADD world now, where people want to have something that is different than what it was 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And that really, played into our favor.
Well, when you look at, some of the bands in our scene, when you talk about the Dead, you got San Francisco, and you talk about Fish, you have Burlington, you talk about Panic, you have Athens. And when you talk about Umphrey's, you have Chicago. And what about the geography and the attitude of that city really influence and impact the music?
Well, Chicago has always kind of been known as a town that is just completely steeped in variety and tons of different scenes. So, I've been a fan of bands like the Smashing Pumpkins, and then, kind of as things come along, like Tortoise, Wilco. Obviously at the blues scene, you have Buddy Guy, who is still such an integral part of that live music scene, always doing a month-long residency in January. And then you have obviously like house music that's come out of Chicago. So there's kind of the dance element of it too. And then you have places like Ravinia, which hosts tons of classical music and world music and all kinds of different things. So to me, it really is kind of a melting pot of all these things that could have a little bit of a parallel to what Umphrey's does. I think geographically it really helped us as well, though, because we were kind of in the middle of the country, and as a touring band, that can be challenging getting all over if you live on the East Coast or the West Coast getting started. And so we were able to kind of start by touring concentric circles and going out and hitting places from there. And so that really helped us logistically to be able to make it work.
Yeah. Well, in terms of music and performance, what is it about that medium of creativity, of music, that you can express yourself most accurately and artistically?
I don't know if there really is such a thing as expressing yourself accurately. I was just watching this video of Victor Wooten last night from Snarky Puppy's Ground Up Festival in Miami. And Victor is talking about, there are a lot of great players out there, but let's think about this. Everybody here knows who B.B. King is, right?
Yeah.
And he's been playing the same 5 notes for 50 years, right? Mm-hmm. And, then there's a virtuoso guitarist like Alan Holdsworth, who just passed away last year. He's like, and it's like, your mom, your grandparents know who B.B. King is. Your kids are going to know who B.B. King is. He said, people aren't going to know who Alan Holdsworth is. And he's like, that's because there's something about the feeling of what B.B. does and how he makes you feel when he plays. It's like, so that's something to really think about as a musician. How does your music make people feel? And so I think that's something, again, Umphrey just kind of straddled the line of being a band that's not afraid to kind of tackle some deeper and heavier subjects. But for the most part, our live shows have more of a revelatory feel, and we want it to be like that. We want our music to be a celebration of life and something that brings people together in a positive way. And so, I guess that doesn't really address anything specifically musically about like what motivates us, but in the end, it's about those moments where something special is happening and you can feel that connection between the band members on stage and then also between the band and the audience.
Well, it's funny that you bring up B.B. King because before Neil Casal passed away, I did an interview with him and he brought up B.B. King about how it's playing with the right touch and the right sounds and the right feeling. And he said with B.B. he was known for that one note where he was one of those people that could play one note and speak to the world through that one note,
Yeah, right. Oh, that's so true. And, there aren't many musicians out there who really have that, what feels like an easy connection to get to that space. So I think that's kind of, that's kind of what we're all going for as musicians, trying to find that spot, our own little creative niche where we can create that connection.
Well, it's also one of those things too where it's not about necessarily all the notes you play, but about what you have to say,
Right, exactly. It's about how you play those notes and how you put all that together. And one of the, I think, most fun things about being in Umphrey's McGee is that we've all worked on our listening skills with each other over the years, and as a result have kind of created our own little language, I would say. And so it's something to me that really feels like just like we're speaking in English right now, that it's a musical conversation just like that. Yeah. It really is its own language. And so that's something that, that as we've gotten to know each other more over the years, I think we've been able to kind of figure out how to get to those magical places with more frequency.
Well, it was interesting.